Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brent Watts, and I'm the Chief Meteorologist for WDBJ-7 in Roanoke. On behalf of Hope Tree Family Services, I'm honored to welcome you to the 2020 Virtual Hopes and Dreams Gala. Just as Hope Tree cares for those whose lives have been altered by forces beyond their control, I thank you for supporting Hope Tree as it strives against circumstances beyond its control. Our theme tonight is Gathering Together. It's a theme taken from Matthew 18:20. For where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Although we can't gather in large groups as in years past, we're confident that Christ will be present in the smaller gatherings taking place all over the Commonwealth. While His blessing and His love, we know this will be a successful event. I'm speaking to you from the agency's museum on their Salem campus. The history presented here speaks volumes of God's support of the ministry through the years. Our Hopes and Dreams Gala would not be possible without the support of generous individuals and businesses. Please take a moment to note their names and offer a word of thanks for their commitment to Hope Tree's mission. As a result of their generosity, all of this year's expenses have been paid. 100% of all contributions will go directly to the programs you're going to learn more about this evening. We deeply appreciate the sponsors' generosity on this very special evening. For an organization to successfully follow any mission, regardless of how simple or daunting, it has to possess vision and leadership. And the gentleman responsible for that vision and leadership is President and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. John Morris. At this time, Mr. Morris will share a few words about the history of this tremendous organization.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for joining us for our Hopes and Dreams Gala. On behalf of the Hope Tree Board of Trustees and our employees, I want you to know that we are so grateful for your support of this amazing organization. Without the generosity of compassionate individuals like yourselves, our work with at-risk children and adults with developmental disabilities would not be possible. I'm nearing the conclusion of my first year as Hope Tree's President and Chief Executive Officer, and I have to say that my admiration for what this agency has achieved throughout its history grows with each passing day. Ironically, my first job after graduating from college was with Hope Tree. I was a member of the emergency care staff in Titmus Cottage. I moved on to other jobs with other agencies, but Hope Tree always remained a very special place to me. So coming home to Hope Tree was truly an answer to my prayers. Hope Tree is a special organization unlike any other. It was founded by a small group of committed individuals 130 years ago with a mission to serve God by providing shelter, love, and support to children in need. The ways we carry out that mission may have changed somewhat over the years, but our commitment to showing God's love and fostering hope to those who need our services has endured.
Virginia languished in a severe state of distress following the Civil War. The economy floundered. Hopelessness prevailed. Countless children fended for themselves on streets, in alleys, and across barren country homesteads. Until a group of Baptist ministers and lay leaders decided to take action. They found inspiration in similar efforts taking place in neighboring states. They drew strength from their steadfast faith in God. As their plans came together, grassroots support grew. An initial donation of $1.25 passed from New York to North Carolina to Richmond. That amount, roughly $40 in today's economy, was quickly matched and surpassed by others inspired by this small group of Baptists. Most importantly, a Salem pharmacist donated his farm to provide a home for the homeless. The group's dream became reality in October of 1890 when charters were granted by the Virginia General Assembly and the Baptist General Association of Virginia. On July 2, 1892, the first residents arrived to live in newly constructed Evans Cottage. The Baptist Orphanage of Virginia was born. It has thrived ever since. Those who supported the orphanage and the staff who worked here built a grand place of bricks and mortar. Yet the people themselves were made of far stronger materials. They were born of spirit and commitment, faith and fidelity. Those characteristics empowered them to persevere through a Great Depression, 2 world wars, sicknesses, and social upheaval the likes of which they had never encountered. Still, their devotion to their mission never wavered. The orphanage flourished. New buildings were erected. Expanded services were provided to help children overcome the traumatic circumstances that brought them into care. By the 1950s, the number of true orphans had dwindled. Yet a large number of children whose families could not adequately provide for them were still in need of a home. To reflect that change, the Baptist Orphanage of Virginia became the Virginia Baptist Children's Home. As the decades passed and children's and society's needs changed, our services and programs adjusted accordingly. Foster care became as prominent as our residential program for children. We offered higher levels of counseling for both children and their families. We established our own on-campus academic program. In 1992, we created a program to meet the needs of a portion of our society that had too long been underserved. We established the Developmental Disabilities Ministry, or DDM, to care for adults with intellectual disabilities. Springing from a simple week-long camp experience, DDM now spans Virginia, serving more than 100 men and women on a daily basis. By 2006, we were far removed from our origin as a haven for homeless children. We needed a new identity that revealed our mission of being a multifaceted agency catering to the needs of individuals ranging from infants to senior citizens. We are now Hope Tree Family Services. Through God's love, we foster hope by empowering families, youth, and adults to lead fulfilling lives.
As impressive as our history is, I'm so excited and optimistic for Hope Tree's future. We began as an orphanage providing food, clothing, and shelter to children that had no one to care for them. Today, our Children's Services Ministry provides therapeutic group homes for boys and girls, individual and family counseling, a licensed private day and alternative school for students in grades 7 through 12, and treatment foster care services for hundreds of children every year across Virginia. Our Developmental Disabilities Ministry, something our founders could never have imagined, operates nearly 20 group homes for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Beyond that, we have programs that minister to adults' needs in their homes, as well as programs that help these amazing men and women take their rightful places in their communities. While we will always honor our rich history, we are committed to becoming the premier human services organization in Virginia so we can help more families, youth, and adults lead fulfilling lives. We are going to fulfill our mission by living out our core values of ministry, people, stewardship, accountability, and excellence. So we would love your prayers as we seek God's wisdom, protection, and favor as we press towards the mark of our high calling. In closing, we would like to leave you with the blessing that Moses spoke to Aaron. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thank you for your interest in Hope Tree Family Services, and thank you in advance for your generous support.
To say that 2020 has been a tumultuous year would be quite the understatement. A worldwide pandemic, catastrophic weather conditions, social and political turmoil, the likes of which our nation hasn't seen in decades. These all combined to create an atmosphere of stress and anxiety many of us have never experienced. Well, the children and youth cared for by Hope Tree Family Services are too often all too familiar with stress and anxiety. Long before they set foot on the campus or introduced to one of our gifted social workers, they experienced life-altering events most of us cannot imagine. 49 years ago, a young boy arrived at Hope Tree hoping to overcome life-altering events of his own. Now, a half a century later, he helps others overcome many of those same events.
And I do remember that my mother would have to go, she would go door to door sometimes and borrow just a cup of rice or something to feed us. And it almost seems like family wasn't as willing to help, maybe because they didn't have it, aunts and uncles, I don't know, but there wasn't much support there. So my mother, she did the best she could with 8 children. Now there were 4 of us that came here and 4 that stayed at home. Prior to coming to live here, we got a chance to come and visit. And we flew here, and I was 7 years old. So they flew 4 of us up here to visit the home, and I thought, man, I'm going on an airplane. That was the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Which we didn't have sliced bread, but. As a child, you don't see things of color. It's just gray. You see other children. That's the way I looked at it. But we were the first black family to come on the campus here. And I never had any trouble. I really didn't. It's really interesting to see what's going on today versus the 70s, coming out of the 60s and into the 70s, and how we have issues when we should have had big issues back then, and we didn't have those issues. It was a family thing. It really was like a family being here. I got a lot of support coming into this building right here. It used to be the maintenance shop. And I would come in and, work on things. Yule and Bobby and those guys taught me a lot. I worked on this deck out here in front of the museum. And one of the reasons I was able to do that is because they took the time to teach me how to read a tape measure, how to use the tools and things like that. Even today, I'm sure they go through the same things with the kids. It's a different time, different kid, but, staff is, they're here for the kids. I've always tried to keep a connection with the home. It's my home. It's the home of all of us that live there, whether you choose to realize it or not. Hey, good or bad, indifferent, this was home, and you always come home. My mother said to me many times after I had gotten old enough, I was 18, had grown up, gotten out of the house, she used to say, I made the right choice, didn't I? It always bugged her that, I made the right choice, didn't I? I said, yeah, Mom, you did. It was the best thing you could have done for us. The opportunities I got here, I know I wouldn't have gotten, had I stayed at home. Who knows where I'd be right now. If I look at my family's history, my uncles on my father's side and my father, they were all alcoholics. I don't know. I don't think I would have made it. the most important thing I learned here, and it didn't really dawn on me until I got older, right? And that was the fact of Christianity, that Christ died for me. Now I knew that, I'd heard it, it went in this ear, it stopped in the brain and it went out the other one, but I still knew it. It was there, there was a foundation that was built. You know, and there have been times when I, felt like I was all alone, and I would reach for that, and he was there, and he's there today in my life. I mean, a huge part of my life is just knowing that Christ died for me. The thing that I think you'll get out of it is knowing that you're helping someone. You really are helping the kids. You may not see where your money goes, and a lot of times, you don't have to see where it goes. I used to be one of those donors where I would say, you know what, why would I give my money to them when I may need it myself? That was selfish, right? Organizations like this are here to help. They really are. I firmly believe in donating to the children's home, and if it's in your heart to do it because it's the right thing to do.
As Mr. Brownley says, Hope Tree is very much like a family. One of the most important things a family provides is the opportunity for growth and fulfillment of one's potential. Hope Tree's Developmental Disabilities Ministry was established in 1992, specifically to provide adults with intellectual disabilities the opportunities they need to transform their potential into the fullest, most rewarding lives possible. Here now is the story of Debbie, who resides in the Fife home in Abington. Thanks to Hope Tree's support, Debbie has come a long way in fulfilling her potential in the ways that no one would have ever imagined possible.
You purple.
Oh, honey, you're beautiful.
Me too.
Debbie is seriously my best friend. She makes my day when I come in the mornings, and she says hello. When I'm off for a couple of days, say I'm on vacation, she knows I'm coming in. She'll meet me at the door, let me know how much she missed me.
Debbie Worley is a ray of sunshine in this house. She's been here for about 10 years. She has made tremendous progress since she moved in with us. She has participated in physical therapy, occupational therapy, and she has overcome some very serious health issues and is now working on becoming employed.
Debbie had not received PT or OT, so I worked on getting that for her. She excelled in that. She is continuing that, and she does wonderful.
Can you get 10 more? Yeah. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, down low, 3, 4, 5.
We started the process because Debbie mentioned she wanted to get a job, and so we knew there was barriers there. So we started the process. Debbie excelled with that. She made wonderful friends with the organization that we were working with.
Initially, when I met her, she was not really a fan of some of the activities that we would do in therapy. But after we encouraged her to continue to do those things, she got stronger, her coordination got better, and she built her confidence in those things. It's really exciting, and it really does get to you. Because to take someone who maybe others may have in the past given up on, and to see that functional change, things that we take for granted, like I love getting up and coming to work every day of my life. And then to see her be able to do the exact same things that I do every day, and her be just as proficient, how much better can it get than that?
We don't run an institutionalized setting. Our schedules are flexible, and we allow all of the ladies who live here in this home to be involved in making schedules and decisions about how they want to live their own lives. They decide what they're going to do on the weekends. They decide what activities they want to be involved in, if they want to volunteer, if they want to go shopping, if they want to go out to dinner, and they do those things. They are able to interact with the community just like we do.
While at Girls Inc., she was able to volunteer at the ticket booth and hand out tickets to the little girls during the summer. At the library, she has completed tasks such as stamping the books, ripping names off of the magazines, and that is a possible chance of one of her jobs since she's already had experience in that.
And when you see how much being involved in the community and being able to direct your own life, how much that's made her come out of her shell, she can talk to people really easily now. I think that is such a life difference, and I think that people should not limit others based on what they think they can do or not do. Give them a chance. You know, you don't know what someone's possibilities are.
It has been said that after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing that we need the most. Surrounded as we are now by those first three items, it's my privilege to introduce you to someone who specializes in creating the fourth. Our keynote speaker tonight is one of America's greatest professional storytellers. Kim Whitecamp has won every prestigious storytelling award given in this country, many of them more than once. Her recordings range from the collections of stories, both humorous and heartwarming, to full-fledged sagas composed of story and songs that touch your heart and soul. In addition to her storytelling prowess, Kim provides corporate training for companies such as Nestle, Purina, Edward Jones Financial Services, and Feeding America. Though hundreds of miles may separate us tonight as we've gathered in the homes of family and friends, Kim Whitecamp's message will show us how we can unite to make a powerful impact on the lives of those cared for by Hope Tree Family Services.
Hello, and welcome to my home. Normally, we would be coming together, as in close proximity to one another, sitting together at tables, laughing, talking, shaking hands. Some of you I would even hug because I've known you for a while. And I would have on my evening attire. But for this event during these times, you have been invited into my home as I come to you to share just a few stories that are important to me, extreme mile markers in my journey of life. So when I was 14 years old, my mom and I were home alone. It was kind of strange. It didn't happen very often. My sister had gone to somebody's house to spend the night. My brother Chris was away at Bible college. My brother Gary was in the military. And my dad had left on a business trip, which was a rare thing considering he owned his own business locally. Well, I was in the basement in the rec room playing, and my mom called me up. And I'll never forget, I was listening to an album on my gray Emerson portable record player. And she called for me. And I went into the kitchen and she said, "Honey, I want you to sit down and I have something I need to tell you. And I thought, oh, what did I do that she found out about? I was a handful. Well, she proceeded to tell me the following. She said, honey, when I met your daddy, I already had 2 little boys. Now you have to understand, my mother is a saint. And I thought that she could do no wrong. And as I sat there, I began to tick away exactly what that meant. I grew up with 2 brothers and a sister. And I thought we had the perfect cookie cutter family. 2 boys, 2 girls, a dog, a mom, a dad. And so when she told me this, I know that I sat there for a good 2 to 3 minutes. Shock registered on my face as I put the pieces together. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, that means were you married before? And she said, yeah, I was. And I said, what happened? Well, her eyes welled up with tears. And I stood up and I hugged her and I said, Mom, it's okay, because my mom's a very proper woman. And sharing this information I knew wasn't easy for her. And she said, well, Kimmy, she said, I married my high school sweetheart. His name was Gary, and it was perfect. But as time went on, he began to drink, and then he began to gamble. And it just got to a point where for the sake of my sons, I had to leave. Now, we're going way back. That was not an easy path for a woman in those days. This is like the late 50s. And she said, so when I met your daddy, I already had your brothers. And I said, so that means my brothers are my half-brothers? And that dad is their stepdad? Let me tell you, my whole world shifted in that moment. It was unbelievable. Just to have everything that you ever believed shook to the core. I remember one time I was sitting in health class and our seats lined up, and 3 seats up, 1 row over was a gentleman, a young boy back then, named Tom Miles. And I remember the health teacher asking if anything had happened recently that we wanted to talk about. And Tom slipped his hand up and said that his parents had recently got divorced. Now, in today's times, that's not a big deal anymore. Sadly, it is not a big deal. But back then, huge. I remember how sad I felt for Tom and how lucky I felt to have such a secure home with my mom, my dad, my brothers, and my sister. And now here I sat in the kitchen with my mom, finding out that the perfect family that I thought we had was really more pieced together. Well, my mom told me a little more about the situation with her husband, Gary, her first husband. And I slowly just ticked and clicked and put it all together and kept telling her it was okay. And when we got through that part of the conversation, she took me over and sat me back down and took my hand and said, Kimmy, there's something else I have to tell you. I thought, well, what else? What in the world could possibly even trump this one? What could possibly be this information? And she looked me in the eyes and she said, honey, when I met your daddy, he had a little girl. I said, what? I said, what happened to her? And my mom looked at me and she said, honey, it was you. I said, what? She said, honey, when I met your daddy, he had a little girl. To this day, I make my living with words, and I still cannot find an appropriate word that has the depth that I need to describe what happened to me in that moment. Computing that my brothers were my half-brothers and my mom was married before, well, that was just almost like it didn't matter. I was raised with those boys. I loved them like they were my brothers. I didn't care. I was mostly fascinated that my mother had some life before us that she had kept secret. It almost, sadly enough, at 14 was somewhat delightful to know that your mother wasn't perfect. But this, I remember sitting there and I felt like a hole busted open in me. And it became a cavernous, cave-like, empty, hollow, echoing part of me, black and dark, with crags and cliffs, depths that I didn't even understand, not knowing what was inside, not knowing who I was. And I sat there in my mind, tick, 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 tick. And I said, that means that Gary and Chris, they're my stepbrothers. She said, yes. And I said, wait a minute. That means Holly is my half-sister. She said, yes. I said, that means that Grandma's not my grandma. And that means that Pap's not my pap. And that means you're not my mother. If I could go back. It's the one thing I said I wish I could take back. My mother got up and held me, 14 years old, in my mother's lap as I wept and wept and wept until I couldn't breathe. You know, when you cry to the point that you can't even breathe up through your nose because you've released everything you possibly can. And then I went to bed. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I kept thinking, everybody has lied to me. Everybody's lied to me. I found out that my brothers knew all along. Of course they did. I came into their lives when they were old enough to remember. The youngest brother, not as much, you know, the one that was younger than my other brother, but they remembered, and so they knew. But everybody, aunts, uncles, grandparents, had all lied to me. And the whole foundation of who I thought I was, the ground that I had started as a 14-year-old, started to put my roots into, completely shifted. And I felt bare and exposed and confused. Well, please remember I was 14. And so that is already a troublesome time. I was almost 15 actually at this time. And boy, oh boy, did I become a lot to handle. Now, I was already a lot to handle. A raging redhead. It's naturally turned blonde as I've gotten older. A raging, redheaded, skinny, freckle-faced, buck-toothed 14-year-old kid that already was bouncing off the walls and a little bit of a Dennis the Menace. My mom actually even called me Dennis. So you add this onto it, and I just went to a whole other level. When my mom would tell me to do things, I'd say, you're not my mom. I would look at my dad and say, you lied to me. I holed myself up in my bedroom for long periods of time and became quite the troubled child. And so what did they do? They shipped me off to my grandmother's, my mother's mother. You know, the one that wasn't my grandmother anymore. And I remember I went over and I thought, this is weird that I've been sent to grandma's house by myself, because normally my sister was with me. But I was excited. I thought I'm getting some special treatment because of the horrible situation that I'm in. And just, you know. And so we did what we always did. We had supper, and then we got our Turkey Hill ice cream with Mr. Salty pretzel stick sticking in it, and we went to watch Lawrence Welk. Now, if you don't know what Lawrence Welk is, it's okay. But for those of you that do, you get it. As a 14, almost 15-year-old girl, I loved watching the dresses as they spun around the floor, and a Lawrence Welk leading the band. And we were in the middle of watching Lawrence Welk, pretzel sticks in the ice cream, and I would use them to scoop it up and eat it. And my grandmother got up and turned off the TV in the middle of the show. And I was sitting on that sculpted green, that horrible green carpet that she had. And I watched her as she sat back down, and I said, why did you turn off the show? And she said, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. She said, I understand from your mother that you have found out the situation. I said, yes. And she said, well, I understand that you are creating a lot of trouble because of the situation, and that you're becoming a little more than your mom can handle. And I didn't say anything. And my grandmother looked at me and she said, Kimmy, Jesus didn't pick his parents. Are you better than Jesus? What am I supposed to say? We went to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I obviously knew I wasn't better than Jesus. And the woman just sat there in her rocking chair, her eyes boring into me, waiting for the answer. And I said, no, I'm not better than Jesus. She goes, good, then you need to get over it. God has given you two parents who love you, a family who loves you. You don't get to pick and choose. Jesus didn't pick and choose, so get over it. People, that was the extent of my counseling. And so she turned Lawrence Welk back on. We continued eating our ice cream like nothing ever happened. And I got over it. Not quite. As I became older, I searched for my mother, and that's a whole other story with the blessing of my parents, and we had good conversations about it, and I definitely won by having the mother who raised me from the time I was 6 months old, because I'd been abandoned by my mother at 5 weeks old on the doorstep of another human until my dad came and got me. In the end, I definitely won. And God did a good job picking my parents. But I want to explain something. My grandmother. That woman had to put lotion on her knees because she spent so much time in prayer. She was a truth speaker. She didn't pull punches. And that moment in her living room is seared into my brain. And it was a lesson that was hard, like ripping off a Band-Aid on a cut, hard to take. But even though she's passed away, we're together. Right now, you and I, sharing this story, my grandmother, Evelyn, is here together with us in my memories, in the story you now know of her. And she has been together with me through every step I've taken in life, her wisdom ringing through my mind. Now I want to tell you another story. All of my report cards from kindergarten through 5th grade said the same thing. If Kimmy would just apply herself. If Kimmy would spend as much time entertaining her work as she does trying to entertain the class. It was that way until 5th grade when I met Mrs. Ort. Up until 5th grade, I was constantly getting pink slips for being late because I was talking in class. I got pink slips and was sent to the office. I had detention because I was constantly disrupting in class. I was that child who could not sit for more than 5 minutes, who could not keep their mouth shut, who was so excited about the things I was thinking that I felt I needed to share them with the whole class. Back in the day, there was no name for that. There was no help for that. And so I was called high-spirited, rambunctious, unable to conform. Mrs. Ort, when she became my 5th grade teacher, I had heard from all the kids that she was the coolest teacher in the school, which I did not see. She was ramrod straight, button-down shirt, pencil skirt, sensible rubber-soled shoes, and a high beehive of brown, shellacked hair and lips painted coral number 62. There was nothing about that woman that looked cool, but every kid said she was the best teacher in that school. And so when I got her, I was super excited to find out why. Well, I was in her class about 3 weeks when she looked at me and said, Kimberly, stand up. That's how she spoke. Perfect diction. I slid out of my little wooden and metal desk thinking, what did I do that she found out about? I had that thought a lot in my life. And as I stood there fiddling with the bottom of my Snoopy t-shirt, looking around, all of my peers watching me, she said, Kimberly, you have a gift. It is the gift of gab, and with it, child, you could rule the world. I remember standing there, and in a split second, all of these memories went through my mind. My brother saying, Kimmy, shut up. Kimmy, stop talking. My parents saying, Kimmy, just be quiet for a few minutes. My teacher saying, get down to the office. You've interrupted me long enough. Take this pink slip. Constantly being told to be quiet. Constantly being told, sit still. Constantly being told, sit down. And here's a teacher who's telling me that my gift of gab was a gift, and that all these years of getting in trouble for it and being told to be quiet, they were just stifling my gift. I couldn't believe it. And my life changed after that. Mrs. Ort found every way possible for me to get exercise and to exercise my mouth. If there was anything that needed read, she'd have me read it. If there was anything that needed acted out, she'd make sure I was part of that group. She sent me on errand runs to deliver messages in envelopes that to this day I now have figured out they were empty, and she just knew that I needed to walk, because those messages in those envelopes always went to the teacher that was the furthest away from her classroom. If the erasers needed clapped outside, do you remember that? When the erasers needed clapped outside, she'd make sure I was the one to do it. If she needed help cleaning up, she made sure I was the one that did it. She even got me my first unpaid gig, reading the morning announcements and the menu of the day from the office in a little chair with a large silver microphone in front of me. I took it so seriously. I did it with accents. I had fun and flourished, and it was my own theater whenever I got to do those announcements every morning. I had so much fun. Mrs. Ort changed my life. She ended up having long talks with my mom, and my mom has told me to this day that she used words like, there is no test within these four walls that could show the gifts that I see in Kimmy. We need to direct her so she doesn't fall through the cracks. Things like that my mom has told me that she has said. I always knew that I was her favorite student. I visited her every year until I graduated. After I graduated, because she changed my life. She truly changed my life. She taught me when to speak, when I shouldn't speak, that I had power in my words, and that if I took and could harness them and use them appropriately, I could change the world. I loved that woman so much. And I visited her every year until I graduated. And after I graduated, I visited her at her home. And then when I had my own morning show in a tri-state area, I had her on every Teacher Appreciation Day on the show. And I knew that I was her favorite, right? Well, when she passed away, there was a gathering at her house near where my parents lived, actually. And her son was there. And I went up to him and I said, I loved your mother. And he said, I know. He said, Kimmy, I heard your name. You were on her tongue a lot when she had you in her class. And she would recount hilarious stories, and always with a twinkle in her eye. And I said, well, I always felt like I was her favorite. And he said, well, I have something for you. He said, come with me. And back in the little bedroom where they had put the coats for everybody that had come to have a bite to eat and to kind of fellowship, he reached down on the other side of the bed and pulled up a cardboard box, and it had my name on it. And he took the lid off, and in it were things that I had given her. Cheap brooches that my aunt gave me that I gave to Mrs. Ort because I loved her. Little baubles and little gifts from trips and things like that that I'd given her. Things that I'd written and art that I'd made. There was a framed essay of how I wanted to grow up and be Billy Graham. Still, my mother is sad about that path not being followed. And she had framed that and kept it on her wall, he told me, for a long time. I looked at him and I said, I cannot believe she kept all of this. I said, I knew I was her favorite. And he sighed and he said, look, come with me. And he took me into the basement and he pulled a string and it lit up. And against the wall were boxes and boxes, all with the name of children that Mrs. Ort had in her class. We were all her favorite. She's here now, with us together, in my thoughts, in my actions, in my behavior, in the path that my life took. I did not do it alone. I did it together with her on one side, together with my grandmother on the other. They helped me chart my path. They helped the steps that I took. They helped who I became as a woman. They helped who I became as an entertainer, as a pastor for 20 years. Together with me, they did that. Even though they are not physically on this earth, we are together right now in this story, in these memories, and in the way they have affected my life. One more story. We were at Bible college, and I was an at-home mom and auditing classes while my husband went to Bible college for his pastoral license. I couldn't find a job. It was a college town, so that made it rougher. And I had 2 children, and so finding a job that covered daycare for 2 kids, the little bit of money that eked out after that, we just decided it'd be best if I stayed home. My husband took a job as a server at Cracker Barrel while he went to school, and we took all of our savings and paid off his schooling so that we wouldn't have to worry about that, and we just would have to worry about the very basic needs that we had. Well, it wasn't long into the first school year that we were there that he broke his wrists, both of them, while playing softball. It's hard to serve food at Cracker Barrel when both of your wrists are broken. I remember when he came home from the hospital, Donnie brought him home, and I sat there and I looked at him and I said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "Because with your wrists broken, you can't even look after the children," because they were young. And he said, "I don't know." And so we began figuring ways to make a little bit of money, and I made money as I could, and I did some babysitting, and things got really, really tough. I am a proud woman. I did not ask for help, but I did pray. I remember one night in particular, the only thing I had to feed my family was buttered noodles and corn because that was literally all that I had. I remember as we gathered around the table, we bowed our heads to pray, and my daughter Tiffany said, "Can I pray?" Absolutely. She's about 5, 6 years old. And she prayed that we would get food. I thought I'd been hiding it. I thought I was cheerful enough and presenting the little that we had in such a way that my kids did not know. Kids are so smart. I remember sitting there as we ate our buttered noodles and corn, wiping away the tears. The fact that my children knew we had so little, and the fact that all I could give them was some noodles and a can of corn. After dinner, we cleaned up. And as we were cleaning up, there was a knock on the door. It's odd. It was later in the evening. I opened the door, and before me stood a man and a woman, Mary Ann and Jim Ingram. I will never forget them. They looked at us and said, "We are from the Married Couples Fellowship on the Bible College campus." And they said, "We do not know how you fell through the cracks." And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, we did not know that you were off campus living in," we had a townhouse because they were out of apartments on campus. And she said, "We feel terrible about that because when new married couples move in to the Bible College campus, one of the things that we do is that we fill their cupboards. It's called a cupboard blessing. And we just fill their cupboards with food." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah. And somehow you fell through the cracks because we didn't know you were living off campus, and we apologize, but we have food for you." People, I'm not kidding. They brought bags and bags and bags of food. There was fresh strawberries, bread, lettuce, tons of frozen good, frozen juices, frozen meat, enough food to see us through for at least 2 weeks or more. The next day, my kids and I took some of the extra stuff that we knew we could never consume and gave it to the people that lived in the neighborhood around us because there was another college in the area, and a lot of students lived there. I remember as Marian and Jim brought that food in, my little daughter looked at me with pure delight, knowing that her prayers had worked, and she dropped to her knees and asked for a pony. That was a humbling moment. And yet it was a miracle that the prayers of a little child were answered so quickly and swiftly. And that God in his infinite wisdom put the cogs of a wheel in motion long before that little girl said her prayer over her buttered noodles and her corn, so that she could see a quick answer and solidify his power and grace. I later became friends with Marianne and Jim. My husband's wrists healed. I got a job with social services, and I gave back through that food ministry. Second Harvest Food Ministry is what it was called, out of Virginia. Oh my gosh, I forget who I'm talking to. You probably know who that is. I've keynoted for them numerous times. And one of the reasons why that happened, that connection, was because it was from them that the food came to that Bible college campus, which ended up in my home, which answered my daughter's prayers and fed my family's need. Every person involved with that ministry was together with me and my family. To this day, in this moment, in this story that I'm sharing with you, in my memories of that, in my gratefulness of that, every person who gave every dollar, loaded every pallet, stacked every can, who did the delivery, was together with me and my family. Together. These are uncertain times, and they say, oh, we're together in this. I get it. Not close proximity where we can touch each other, but together right now in this world, which is just absolutely crazy. We are together in what we're feeling, in our uncertainty in these times. We don't have to be physically side by side to be together. Mrs. Ort does not have to be here in this physical world for her to be together with me. My grandmother does not have to be here with me to be together with me. The people that fed my family and led me on a path of gratefulness to help the hungry, which I still do and believe in to this day. I don't even need to know their faces or know their names to know that they gave something so that together a little girl's prayers could be answered and a family could be helped. Today, as you're gathered together in your houses, I ask you to rise up and to come together by giving, by caring, and giving hope, by filling the needs of families, by filling the needs of people who need some guidance, filling the needs of the prayers of a child together.
The time has come for all of us to help Hope Tree Family Services keep changing lives. There are 3 very simple ways to make a contribution to Hope Tree this evening. So first, if you're participating in this event on a computer, open a new browser window and go to hopetreefs.org 2020 Gala. Click on the Donate Now tab, and you can enter a contribution there. If you feel more comfortable drafting a check and mailing it to show your support, that's fine as well. Please remember to write hopes and dreams on the memo line and mail your check to the address that's on your screen right now. If you prefer, you can also make a donation straight from your cell phone. Simply create a new text message to the number 91999. In the message box, type the word Hope Tree. That's all one word. It can be lowercase, uppercase. It's not case sensitive, so don't worry. Once you've done that, just hit send. You'll receive a text message back. Click the link on that text. It's going to take you to a secure donation page where you can complete your donation. Throughout that page, you'll see donate buttons, and if it's easier, go ahead and click there and you can donate that way. However you choose to make a contribution, please know that each dollar you give will go directly to support Hope Tree Ministries to at-risk children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Thank you for your generous demonstration of compassion tonight. And your contributions will truly make an important difference in the lives of those who rely on Hope Tree Family Services. As you go about your lives in the coming weeks and months, remember to offer a kind prayer or a kind thought for those adults with intellectual disabilities and the at-risk youth in Hope Tree's care. Their needs will continue past the support we can give tonight. It's our hope that you will find it in your hearts to continue supporting Hope Tree's mission in the months and years to come. Good night, and God bless.